Hey there guys, because there's not much going on this week in Brave Exvius, just to have something to make a video about, I'm going to spend this video basically just talking about some of the units available from the NV Unit Select 7th Anniversary ticket. Now to get this ticket, you go to the Lapis Replica shop, and you can buy it right here for 7,000 Replica Lapis. I think you can get one of these as well from either a paid bundle or a special step up. I think there was two sources of these, I don't know, but you can definitely get one from Replica Lapis. Now, I'm personally going to wait till the last day of the shop to make my decision if I'm even going to get that or not. But, you know, if you decide to get it early, or you're just bored and want to hear me ramble about units for however long this takes, this is the video for you. So this is the unit selection we're going to be going with. I'm going to go from bottom to top. This only covers units up to Marksman Irving, and it also, I think it doesn't include premiums as well. So this is almost kind of like a unit review video in a very condensed format. I'm not going to be going into very much detail about all the units, but I'll spend some time telling you about them if they're good or not. This is, again, not specifically a what should you pick video. This is just for those of you that are maybe newer players and don't know all the information about these units. So I'm going to try to just give you some bullet points per unit. Some units I may spend longer on than others, and as we get to the older units, like I may just say the unit is worthless, move on. We'll see, and if the video gets too long, I might split this into multiple videos. We'll see what happens. But anyway, starting off, we've got Expert Sharpshooter Irving. So this unit is, at his core, a SLB finisher. He's aligned to the water element. He's got a 150 amplify. But the main way people are going to be using him in reality is by making him dual wield his hyper shot, which allows it to hit twice. It's, I forget by memory, I think it's like a 7,000 modifier or something. I've actually got my sheet open for referencing. It's actually a 7,400 modifier if you dual wield his hyper shot. Keep in mind, if you're dual wielding, you're not getting true double hand variance, so it might not be quite as big as it sounds. Like if you're doing, you know, double hand with 7,400, that's not the case here. But in summary, he's a really high damage dealer. He basically only fits on Squall's leader skill at the moment. In the future, we should be getting Dragon Roos, which is a 500 water leader. That'll also work for Irving. He is really just for dark visions. You're not going to use him in a trial. I mean, you could, but you're probably not going to use him in a trial. And yeah, he's just a hard-hitting water unit. He is non-elemental, so you could imbue him to other elements. That's less useful these days because, you know, the game is, at the high end, the game is mostly all about 150 amplifies and in dark visions. We don't usually take units these days that are wrong element and we imbue them. You still can, but at the highest end, usually you're going to go with only units that bring their own 150 amplify. But that's him. Ruined Explorer Nora is primarily a lightning unit. She does a fire and lightning in Peril field, 40% fist in Peril. She's SLB, and she's a Clash of Wills unit. Her damage in Clash of Wills is okay. It's a little awkward because she's one of those units like Dwayne where you have to do the SLB to set up, then do the normal skills, then do the LB, and you've got to do that before the SLB refreshes because that'll just reset your progress. So it's very awkward. Can be powerful in the right team. She does buff the modifiers of everyone else in your party. All Clash of Wills morale scaling limit burst units. Let me clarify. Not everyone. She only buffs morale limit burst, which on your morale party should be mostly everybody, but in dark visions it won't be that many people, if anyone. And yeah, her damage is okay. She does bring the Imperil fields. Other than that, overall, not the most impressive unit ever seen. Red-Eyed Saul is a 89 defense and Spirit Breaker, which is real nice. He also has 150 Imperil and a 30 Imperil field to darkness. I think his 150 Imperil is also to light and his field is also to ice. So for darkness is the only one you can mix the field and the big in peril. The other two are not really lined up together. One's ice and one is light for the big in perils and field. He's also kind of a damage dealer in his shift form. He can deal okay damage. It's not super great, but it is magical and it is decent. It's actually physical typed magic, so you can't use him on the Dark Vision's mage bosses, which is again kind of amusing, kind of sad. But yeah, so basically he's a breaker with a really big dark in peril, and that's mostly it. Blades of Black Flame Reagan is pretty similar. He's an 89 breaker. He does fire and dark in peril at 150. He doesn't have a field, but his personal damage is respectable. It's a lot better than Saul's. So Saul has the field and less damage. Blades of Black Flame Reagan has the higher damage but no field. So really between these two units, if you're on like a dark team, and who do you want your breaker to be, assuming it's like the final boss, it really depends. They're both really good. Like I said, one deals more damage, one does a field. The field might make your entire party deal more damage, depending. But let's just be honest here. Most people are not running a pure dark party regardless. So you're probably not using Saul because he's more of like a pure dark party unit. Angio is a Thunder Breaker. He's got a 160 Thunder in Peril and an 89 break. A lot of the recent breakers have these 89s. For the most part, they're on a Magnus 1 times per fight. Future breakers, those become reusable on the Limit Burst instead. Like for example, Prompto and actually we skipped Cater. But yeah, so Angio. But the nice thing about him is while most of the units with the 160 in peril, it's on like a SLB, Angio's is on a Magnus. Actually, it's on a cooldown. My mistake. So that can be used every single wave of a multi-wave fight. It's available on turn 1, and on a trial, you could reuse it. So yeah, so he's actually a pretty good breaker. He does have some support stuff in his kit. He can entrust a unit. He can give a unit like a 400 stat buff, 300. Is it 400 or 3? It might be only a 300 stat buff. I don't remember. It's a big stat buff and a big LB buff on one unit. It is on a cooldown though. Also, he's a tag chainer, so you can tag chain if you really want some of the tag chain on the kill turn. So Angio is overall pretty good. That said, his personal damage is really low. So he's like a dedicated breaker and not a DPS at all. Genesis, you probably know about him if you have the Dazzling Demoness or the new one. I forget the new card's name. I think it's Moonlight Parade or some such. Basically one of the big MP cards. Then Genesis is one of those units that uses a Meteor style skill. It is pure magical type, so you cannot imbue it. It is locked to fire. But he has the 150 Amplify, a built-in focus. He's got Neovision's base stats. So at the current time on Global, he has the highest damage potential of any unit, not counting really extreme scenarios like, giving Olivera all the buffs on the planet, something like that. Genesis, for the most part, is the highest damage potential unit on Global for Fire. And Fire on Global at the current time is in a pretty nice place. Fire's got some decent support units. It's got a bunch of heavy hitters. It's got good field support. It's got, honestly speaking, Fire doesn't have a great dedicated breaker. Your best breaker is probably Blades of Black Flame Reagan with a 150 in peril and a 89 break. But that's still pretty good. But yeah, there's Genesis. Dwayne is a unit similar to Nora. Dwayne doesn't have any fields or anything, but he does have, in Clash of Wills only, a special buff that bypasses the normal cap of 300 LB and 400 stats in Clash of Wills. He actually buffs your stats by 450 and your LB damage by 350. So you can almost kind of think of it like having a field of 100 stats and 50 LB damage of a field, kind of, in a way, but actually it stacks with the field. So if you did have a field, you're going even higher than that. So I guess you really shouldn't say that because, it will stack with your fields. But yeah, Dwayne, other than that, is a tag trainer. Everything he does is a tag chain. He's got a 150 fire amp. Honestly speaking, his damage in Dark Visions has been falling behind steadily every week. New units come out, they do more than him. In Clash of Wills, he does still have extremely high damage potential because his damage is exceptionally high in Clash of Wills. But like Nora, his damage is a huge headache. You've got to do the setup, you got to do the SLB, followed by the setup moves, followed by the normal LB. And if you're EX3 or even EX4, and you don't do it back to back to back, the SLB can refresh before you're ready, and it resets your whole progress. It's a tremendously bad unit design, but the payout is worth it. So it's a really strong unit, but enormous headaches to use. And other than dealing damage and his Clash of Wills only buff, he's not doing a whole lot. He doesn't have any killer buffs. He doesn't have any real utility for the party, other than, like I said, that very special, unique to him buff for the party. Fina Dark Lineage is a support unit. I mean, she's fine and all. She's good. It's just like she's competing with some of the global MVPs like Melissa and Sylvie. So when you're wanting to slot a support unit onto your party, unless Fina is bringing something you very specifically need, for example, she's got a few killers in her kit, you're normally going to want to bring like Melissa or Sylvie over Dark Fina or Fina Dark Lineage. That being said, she does have a few killers, by memory, Machine, Demon, I think Beast, a few others. I don't remember specifically. She's got like 4 or 5 killers, maybe only 4. But yeah, she's a support unit. She can fill LB gauge, buff all the immunities. She can imbue people with fire. 100 fire amplify, single target only though, on a cooldown. Yeah, she's decent. I mean, she's good. Sakura Dark Lineage is basically just an upgraded version of Sage of Thunder Sakura. The big reason you would bring her is for the 50 Thunder the 50 Thunder Imperil field. The nice thing is that hers does not require crowns. It's 50 Imperil right out of the gate. She does a little bit of damage, not really, honestly, not really. And she has some killers in her kit as well. I think Bird Killer and one other. I forget which one. But yeah, other than that, she's basically just, like I said, Sage of Thunder Sakura. Same field, same support skills. Slightly better. Does a little bit of damage and has some killers. And yeah, that's it. Grievous of the Frost is a really unfortunate unit. He doesn't really do anything, honestly. He's got a 30 Amplify Ice field and a single target ice amplify, and it's mostly it. It's really it. He doesn't really do damage. I forget if he has killers or not. I don't think he has killers. I could be wrong here. Let's find out real quick. Yeah, I don't think he has any killers. These are innate. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about castable killers. Yeah, he doesn't have any castable killers. He's an SLB unit. Like this unit is just this. Oh, here it is, Manslayer. All allies. Yeah, he has Human Killer. So Human Killer, which is the most common killer in the game. So yeah, overall, a serious miss of a unit. And the only thing he'd really bring you is the field. And honestly speaking, I'd say Frostblade Frievia is a better option than him. But yeah, there it is. Roca Dark Lineage is an Earth Mage, has the 150 Amplify, also has a 40 Amplify field, which is pretty nice. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if you see this unit on an Earth party someday in the future. Kind of like Mid popped up because Mid has a field. She has a 40% Amplify field. The reason you don't really see her used very often is because Earth is in a relatively poor place. It's not really getting any better as we go forward. I guess, technically speaking, the new Ramza, Final Fantasy Tactics Ramza, coming in like 4 months. He's an Earth leader in a way. He's one of those special leaders where he's Earth plus a special category. So you might see Roca pop up on an Earth party in the distant future, but as far as right now, probably not. Earth is just really not up to par when you compare it to the other elements. But like, she's technically speaking, a decent unit, I guess. Lion is basically just a worse version of Angio, but she's light element. 89 breaks, 160 light in Peril. Hers is on a Magnus, so 1 time per battle. She does have AoE Mirage for the party. She's also got AoE killers, I think, to machine and human. Her damage is non-existent. And really the biggest problem with Lion is that, like, light element is, again, not in a super great place. Like, light is okay. It's got, the Crystal Party with Ace and Richt and all that. And Lion might be one of the better options. I'm trying to think in my head who would be a better breaker over Lion for that party. You don't really need a big Imperil because Ace has a 145 light Imperil. I think Rick does too. Rick's might be 140, but Ace's is 145. So you don't really need Lion for the Imperil. So I guess you would probably bring, honestly speaking, like Blades of Black Flame Reagan and just like off element them because they deal so much more damage than Lion does. But Lion is still usable, and like I said, she does do Mirage for the party, and that can be relevant. I used Lion on a Dark Visions clear in JP very recently, just because I needed Mirage on a specific turn, and no one else in the party could do it. Lion could, so I brought her. That said, it was probably not the best pick I could have brought, but whatever, I did it. Lady Shantao is a Dark Mage. Not a whole lot going on for her. She hits decently hard. Like I've mentioned, though, Dark was the first meta party during leader skills with, Ibarra and Deoxys. Dark had its moment. Dark has not been getting better as we move forward. All the other elements are getting all these new, fresh units to keep propping up the team. Dark is not. Like, the most recent Dark unit was Blades of Black Flame Reagan or the Saul unit, Red-Eyed Saul. And those were good. Those gave Dark 2 very, very competent breakers. 1 physical, 1 magical. But even so, Dark is just not on the same level as others, mostly because of the field support. Dark doesn't have good fields. So, like, your Imperil field for Dark is like Vlad or Renoa, 2 very bad units. And then your Amplify field for Dark is on, like, Lynx, who is relatively power crept, or Yuna, who is locked to dealing light element damage. So Dark just doesn't have it going on right now for the field support, and that's a really big deal for parties these days, is having a good field. So Shantao hits really hard. 40% in Peril for rods, which is pretty nice, especially if you got that Dark Visions rod. It's just that Dark is not super great. Curse of Immunity Melissa. Now this is one of the, in my opinion, the best units in this selection. She does all kind of stuff. So she's a global exclusive support unit. She does like LB fill, healing, mitigations. She has the Roca time magic stuff going on for cooldown reduction. She has lots of killers on her kit. I think it's Dragon, Beast, and Human, I think, by memory. Yeah, I think so. I could be wrong. She has Dark Imbue for the party, 100 Dark Amp, usable twice, AoE, more inside of Clash of Wills. In Clash of Wills, she can do things like Imperil removal. She can imbue the enemy for up to 4 turns, which is huge. That basically just cuts off 4 turns of physical damage entirely. Yeah, does a lot of stuff. Really, really strong unit. Oh, and Morale Fill. My God, the Morale Fill. She is literally the best Morale Fill unit in the entire game. No one fills more morale than she does. She's power crept everybody, including Chow and Kresnik. So yeah, really good unit. That being said, the only element she supports is Darkness, and she can't do a Dark Imperil. She's not that big a deal. Normally someone in the party can do it for you. Just keep that in mind. She can't be your one slot fits all Dark support. Without the Imperil. But yeah, still, really, really good unit. Mid is a unit who, for a while, didn't have a lot of use. When she came out, literally no one used her for anything for like 6 months. Then this recent Dark Visions, you saw a lot of Mid because of her synergy with Malphase. Mid has a 40% Amplify field. Malphase has a 50% Wind Imperil field. and those two both also deal relatively meta levels of damage, so they work really well together. So mid plus Malphasy was like your all-in-one wind support for your entire party, and they both deal very, very high damage. So that made wind very, very nice, where Malphasy filled in the gap that mid was missing to make wind really strong in the past. But yeah, so mid is a Dragoon. Dragoons do have their whole big set of headaches. They're jumpers, and that means it can be awkward for party setup if you're using Zahn, it's less of a big deal. But if you're not using Zahn, then you might not want to cast your big killer buff on the turn mid jumps, because maybe the boss is dispelling on that turn and you want to cast it next turn, but because mid is jumping, you see what I'm saying? It can certainly be a headache because of the jump. That's just a Dragoon problem in general, not specific to mid. But when she does work, she hits hard. She hits hard for wind. Yeah. She also, technically speaking, has Earth in her base kit. Wind is her Brave Shift. Earth is the base form. The Earth Amplify is 150%, but it's a 2-turn Amplify, meaning you cannot use it on her jump. All you could do is her Limit Burst. That being said, some people are not really aware of this. If you are doing an Earth party, mid hits pretty hard in the base form with the Earth Amplify, so she would fit on an Earth party. The reason you never see her is because, well, no one runs Earth parties, because Earth parties is like, the bottom 4. You get the top 4 that you always see, and then the bottom 4 you never see, and no one really runs Earth parties. Master Machinist Abigail is by far, no contest, the absolute best magical tank in the entire game in terms of pure tanking. In pure tanking, no one comes even close to her. Like, the second best would be probably Paladin Cecil, and it's night and day. It is night and day how bulky Abigail is compared to Cecil, and that's basically all because of the mitigation. Cecil has 75 mitigation, Abigail has 85. I've gone over this before. For the basic math, if you've got 1,000 damage coming in, it would hit Abigail for 150. It would hit Cecil for 250. So Cecil is taking 40% more damage than Abigail. That's a super simplified way to look at it. There are other factors, other variables, but a super simplified thing is Abigail is taking 40% less damage than every other magical tank, because all the other magical tanks are at 75 mitigation. She's at 85. It's actually an even bigger deal because she also has 85 magical mitigation, which multiplies that damage reduction. But yeah, other than that, not even counting the pure bulk, Abigail's kit is amazing. She's got 87 breaks to all the breaks on demand. She gears like, I guess technically Cecil gears easier, but not really, because Abigail has 50 evasion. Cecil doesn't, and that eats up a lot of slots to go full evasion. Abigail's got, she can fill the LB gauge. She can imbue the party with fire. She can evade the party. She can omni-cover on a short cooldown. Her omni-cover is shorter cooldown than all the other omni-cover tanks in the game, not counting the ones like, Chow that have it, infinite, technically speaking. Abigail, absolutely amazing. Oh, she also does the weapon imperils. 30 weapon imperil to every weapon in the game. All 16 weapons, 30 weapon imperil. Now, all that being said, she doesn't do basically anything for your offenses. I guess the weapon imperils and the imbue can be considered offensive buffs, but I mean, like, as far as killers, as far as offensive fields, as far as dealing damage herself, none of that. Like, you can bring Elena to deal some damage, not much damage, but Elena can deal some damage while tanking. Things like Cecil brings the LB damage field, which is really powerful. That's like a really good field. Cecil brings that. Some tanks like Ash bring 250 killers. Abigail, none of that. She is purely defensive. The best of what she does, but that's all she does. World Hero Gilgamesh is a Dark Breaker. Again, 89. Actually, no, he's not 89. No, now we're getting to the older breakers that are not 89. I think he's 89, 88. I actually go to the SLB. Hold on a minute. I got to max stats. Max stats, SLB. 89 defense, but then he has his Magnus. So 89 defense, not this one. Where is it? Oh my God, where is it? Yeah, 88 Spirit. Okay, so yeah, so now we're getting to the older breakers that are 89, 88. Gilgamesh is an 89, 88 breaker. So at this point, you're not gonna really bring this unless you're a newer player. You have no better options. But I mean, if you're using the selection ticket, you know you've got better options. You've got 89, 89 here. You've got like 89, 89 here, here, here. Yeah, so you're not picking Gilgamesh. But just for completion's sake, he was one of the first from JP, one of the first JP units that had 89 defense break on full uptime. Not the, I think the literal first was Vaughn. I think Gilgamesh was the second, so he's the second one that had that. It was a short trend. Then JP realized this is dumb. We're going to 89, 89 instead, and they jumped that up with Lion. But yeah, he's a breaker. Honestly, relatively outdated. Damage is bad. Doesn't really do a whole lot other than break. That's mostly it. Marine type Ronda is he's a weird unit. He's like a supporter that wants to be a DPS, but he's not really. His damage is absolutely terrible. He doesn't have a good amplify. He's got like 60% amplify. He's pretty terrible. He's got a few killers. He can support. I mean, he's a bad unit. What can I say? I mean, you know, there was some discussion in the past that, like, you know, Marine type Ronda might see use on a very specific fight in Dark Visions. I never saw it happen. I'm pretty sure he's never seen use ever on Global. Could be wrong here, but yeah, he just doesn't really have a lot going on. He does have a nice STMR. Keep that in mind. You know, fish killer, but other than that, bleh. Vacationer Voyager Fina is basically just the water version of what's your girl's name? The water version of Shantao, the water version of Roca. No field, so not really Roca. Roca has a field that's really good. Fina does not. Yeah, 150 water amplify, and like I said, water at the current time on Global, water is the literal worst element, because at the current time on Global, water is the only element that does not have a leader skill. We're getting one in the near future with Dragon Roost, but you know, water was the last element in JP to get a dedicated leader. It is not here yet. We do have leaders for the other seven elements at this point. Water doesn't. So at the current time, she's just a big no. And the problem is, as we go forward, you know, once we do get water units with, you know, new leader skills, the problem is at that point she's very power corrupt. If you're going to use a water team, you're going to be using things like the new Randy, the new Dragon Roost, the new etc. etc. You're not going to be using Vacation or Fina. So, you know, big sad face about her. I think I have her at EX3, honestly, and she's never seen use once, and she never will, at least at the current time. White Mage Creole is a weird unit. So her base form is kind of like a wind support, but not even really, honestly, because she can't even AoE imbue. She can only single target 100 amplify imbue wind to one person on a cooldown. She's got some killers. And then in the shift form, she's a physical earth damage dealer, but her damage is real terrible, like real terrible. So yeah, she's one of those units, like if you need her base form killers, I believe it's Plant and Dragon by memory at 250%. If you need those, you're going to stick her in the party. Other than that, you're not really going to use Creole. She's basically just another version of like Ihana or Ilmatil, etc. You know, she's got some 250 single target killers in the base form, and that's all you'd really use her for. My boy Bart, World Wayfarer Bart. So he is a very unfortunate unit. When he came out in JP and in Global, he was basically broken. I use the term broken even though it's not technically broken. He worked as intended. I'm going to call it broken because it was a brain-dead, idiotic unit design. And the developers in JP realized that his unit design was straight up flawed and made no sense, so they fixed it. They fixed his unit design in JP. They gave his shift form the proper skills. They gave him the wind skill he was missing. They moved his amplify over. They gave him double hand in the shift form because he didn't have it before. And Global skipped all that. So Global still has Bart in his broken state. And because of that, he's... well, you never see him, do you? And the reason you never see him is because on Global, he's still broken. The Global developers have skipped Bart's buffs and Bart's fixes that made him into a very competent wind damage dealer. And on Global, he's not, because they skipped his fixes. Big sad. There it is. Silent Knight Charlotte is a magical tank who, honestly speaking, has no redeeming qualities. The only reason you would ever put her on your party is she does have racial mitigation to a few races. I forget which ones. We'll take a peek real quick. Racial mitigation to dragon and insect, 85%. So if you're fighting a dragon or an insect and you really need someone to tank for you, she can be good. That being said, I think Abigail has dragon mitigation as well. I don't remember. But yeah, maybe just for insect. Honestly speaking, even against a dragon or an insect, you're still not going to take her. You're going to take like Abigail or Elena or Ash or something. She's just unfortunate. Yeah, not really a great unit. Avalanche Barrett is basically a train wreck as well. So in JP, they did like an experiment with the Premium Ject. They made Premium Ject. He was a quote-unquote DPS unit who was also a tank. He tanks fine. Don't get me wrong. He tanks totally fine. But his damage was unfortunate. Global did buff up Ject's damage. You still basically never saw Ject in any real content. And then there's Barrett. Barrett is basically the non-premium version of Ject, which, as you can imagine, on JP terms, a non-premium copy of a unit means it's the same unit but worse. So whereas Ject was already not good enough to use, Barrett's even worse. So yeah, he's a physical tank that tries to deal damage, but he can't because his damage is garbage. And his tanking is, it's physical tanking. So there's two options with physical tanking. Either you need a good physical tank, in which case we're taking Ronda. End of story. Or the boss can be evaded or hits like a a wet noodle or whatever, in which case you take any tank you want. So why would we take Barrett over any other physical tank? Answer is you wouldn't. Tyvis and Yish are a tag unit. They have a fire and ice and peril field, I think 35%. He does have a 150 fire amplify, but the problem is he came out, at this time period where we weren't really on this big power creep of flat stats. So he doesn't have the greatest flat stats, or they, I guess, don't have the greatest flat stats. So the damage is not great. It's okay, but it's not like meta tier damage. The only reason you would take them is for like a dedicated fire team that needed an peril field. And that being said, fire is in a good place. And fire is used pretty often right now in Dark Vision, so you do see these units every now and then. Like they're not bad or anything. It's just like when you compare their damage to like Flaring Rain, it's way far behind, But again, the field buffs the entire party's damage. That can make them worth it, and they do have a 150 amplify. So yay. Embracer of Freedom Sabin also has a 150 fire amplify, and that's it. Nothing else. No other redeeming qualities. His damage is absolutely bottom tier, even with his amplify. And Sabin is frequently brought up as a meme unit to make jokes about. Other than him being used as the butt end of a joke, you never see Sabin. And you probably never will unless they give him some significant overhaul buffs. I think he even got crowns in JP. I think JP even crowned him during the lock banner, and I think he's still basically dead in the water. I think. I could be wrong here. I believe that I calced him and it was so laughably bad that I didn't even add him to the spreadsheet. I could be misremembering. When he does come to Global, if Global doesn't skip the crowns, then I'll calc him again and see. But by memory, he's still pretty worthless in JP, even after a crown. Edgar, basically the same problem. He is a Dragoon, but he's an Ice Dragoon. He does not have a field like Mid does, and again, because he's an Ice Dragoon, his Amplify does not work while jumping, his 150 amp, so it wears off. Ice is one of those bad elements that you don't build around. That's not going to change in the future. Based on JP, Global could always make things change, on the drop of a hat. But based on JP, Ice is still never used. Edgar is worse than his brother Sabin, and that's saying something. That's saying a lot. Yeah, real bad. Red Mage Angus got crowns recently. He does have 4 different Imperil fields. His own personal damage is like okay if you do his setup. The problem is his best damage is doing all his mod buffs and then quad casting some black magic. The problem is that means like you're quad casting, and most Dark Visions parties don't have anyone to quad cast with him. Like, you could give him a dedicated support unit to support chain with, but like, are you really going to give him a dedicated support chainer just for Angus? The answer is probably no. And even if you did, the damage is still not that great. Still not that great. But that said, the fields are good. The fields are good. He does do an 89% spirit break. I think only 88 defense break, but 89 spirit. I mean, it is good. It's nice. Like, he's usable. You might see him on parties every now and then. He's more of the budget option to come to a party, but he can be useful. I'm going to combine these 2 units together: Rain, Final Fantasy 1, and Laswell, Final Fantasy 4. These were basically what we like to call mascot units. These are units the JP server creates for like fan content, fan fiction, whatever. You're not really intended to use these. These are literally just for sprite collectors and to dilute the pool. You don't pull on these units. You never put these units on a party. They are completely worthless. They do give you in JP at least, the skin, so you can dress up your Flaring Rain in the Final Fantasy 1 costume. I don't know if Global ever implemented the skins for these units, but that's basically the only purpose here. They're also they have okay STMRs, 100% LB damage. But yeah, these are 2 units you will never, ever put on a serious party, ever. Yeah, so they're just mascot units. White Mage of Benediction Rosa is again one of those killer units like Ilmatil, Ihana, Creole. She has 250 killer to Undead and I think Dragon and Reaper. So if you're fighting a Dragon or a Reaper, you might stick her on the party for the 250 killer. Other than that, no. That's all she does, is a killer, nothing else. Yeah. Red Wing Cecil, as I was talking about earlier, he is probably the 2nd best magical tank in the game after Abigail, but he does do a field, and the field is really nice. The field is 100% LB damage, and he puts it up for free as a free action as the fight starts. That being said, you can't refresh the field. So on a 11 plus turn trial, Cecil will not have that field after turn 10. But, it's nice. And again, he does gear super easy. He's got 400% to every stat by default. So literally all his gear goes to pure resistance gear. You don't have to gear for stats whatsoever, which is super, super cool. Super, super cool. But other than that, he basically just tanks, kind of like Abigail. Doesn't really do a whole lot other than the field. The field is nice. That's mostly it. Ultimate Regina is a unit who, she saw a lot of use in JP because JP, has more strict unit requirements for, not requirements, but JP has less options for magical stages. So a lot of people were using Regina to handle all the magical stages in JP. Because of that, the JP devs, that's why they started making magical stages immune to physical attacks, because JP players were using Regina on every single magical stage and imbuing her with all the elements. and the JP devs said, no, we can't have that. So that's why we now have all the magical stages in JP are immune to physical attacks, because they wanted to get rid of Regina. So that's really all I can say about her, is you can blame her for your physical mages not working in Dark Visions. So there you go. Ihana, again, it's a 250 killer. I think her killers are Insect, Human, and Demon. I don't know. We're gonna look real quick. Insect, Human, and Dragon. Everybody's got Dragon. Why there's 250 Dragon killers? There's like 3 of them. There's Melissa, Rosa, Ihana. I guess Creole doesn't have it. I don't know. A lot of Dragon killers. Anyway, that's all she is. You know, if you need one of those 3 killers, Ihana might come to the party. If you don't need those killers, Ihana is not coming to the party. It's as simple as that. Vanharma is, right now, I mean, technically speaking, he's actually still, even today, before his upgrades, he's still an okay damage dealer. Not top of the line, but not worthless. He's like middle of the pack. He is getting crowns very soon. Well, he should be getting crowns very soon. You know, you never know at Global, but he should be getting crowns within the next month, based on the JP server, and they make him a lot better. Still not really top of the line meta, but good, decent. Again, the issue with Vanharma is that he is an Earth unit, and as we've said before, Earth is not in a great place. He does have the Rebellion tag in JP, though. So you could put him after his upgrades on a Rebel team with Lightning or the upcoming Ramza. And the upcoming Ramza does make Earth a lot better than it is now. So you might see Vanharma on a team or two. I don't know if you'll see him on like the top rank 1 team. But he's okay. Okay. He's not bad. But he's not good either. It's kind of like, you know, he's very middle of the pack. Planet Destroyer Kuja is an 89 Spirit Breaker, 160 Light in Peril, Rod in Peril, and that's kind of it. That's all I can say about him. That being said, his Imperil is on a 3-turn cooldown, not the SLB. So even at EX0, he still gets his good break on turn 3. So that's nice, I guess. You know, his damage is garbage. He's just a breaker with not much else going on other than 160 Light in Peril and 80. It's 89 Spirit and I think 87 defense. We can look right here. That's not it. Oh, he has this too. All allies human killer. Everybody hates humans. I don't know why. Oh my god. Where is it? Come on. Here it is. 87 defense. Yeah, so he's like way worse than Lion. So if you want a breaker, it's going to be Lion, not Kuja. As much as I love Kuja, you know, it's just way worse than Lion by a lot. Determined Dagger, she recently got crowns on Global. Unfortunately, the crowns don't really fix the core of the problem here, which is that she is a spirit scaler, and in Dark Visions, no one gets a good spirit leader skill. So that really holds her back. Even if she did get like a 750 spirit leader skill in Dark Visions, her damage is still not even that great, even so. Like, it's okay. The main reason you would ever put her on her team is she does have a 50% amplify field for light and lightning. Not at the same time, but light or lightning, I should say. Because going forward in the future, a lot of these fields do become dual element or quad element. So, actually, we already have one with a Deuce. The new Deuce has a quad element amplify field. Those become a lot more common going forward. But no, daggers are one or the other, single element fields. But that being said, you're using an entire party slot just for a field. Like I said, her damage is bad, so you can't even really count that. So that's why you don't really see her too often. You do every now and then. Like, she's okay. I feel like on a rank 1 party, like, you wouldn't add her. You would add someone with like a more personal damage. That's what I feel. I could be wrong here, but anyway. Dark Knight Pain is a little bit of a weird unit to evaluate. So she's a dark unit. Dark is not in a good place. She's very middle of the pack, kind of like Vanharma. Other than that, she does have AoE tag chaining on her LB, which every now and then comes up in Dark Visions. You know, we did see that with the was it Lady Rose Dark Visions? The Dark Visions that had all the drama with it, with the skeleton and the tiger pet. There was some theoretical parties with Dark Knight Pain, doing a tag chaining with like Yuffie and all that. But that was back during the Riku drama, so it never really came to pass. But yeah, going forward, the only other AoE Dark Visions fight in the near time period would be the Dark Archon fight, which it seems like we skipped on Global. That should have been Dark Visions, I think, 28 on Global, and we're now past that, so I guess we're not getting any more AoE fights in Dark Visions. Therefore, Pain probably won't see a lot of use. Berserker Riku, once upon a time, strongest unit in the game. Global came in with that big old band hammer and swung it real hard, and Berserker Riku is now basically dead and not useful. She does, technically speaking, still have the SLB that can deal some damage with lightning, but like lightning's got better units than her, and even more coming in the near future. So you're not going to put Riku in your party, honestly speaking. Yeah, Gumi killed her real hard. She's dead. Songstress Yuna is a weird unit. Like, technically speaking, she can deal a little bit of damage in the shift form, but not really. Not really. She does have a bunch of buffs, like triple Mirage, full uptime every single turn, triple Mirage, auto casting, LB damage, stat buffs, Reaper Killer. I think she does Water Imbue as well. By memory, I could be wrong on that one. Basically, she's a support unit that has some buffs. You see her every now and then. You'll see her on a specialized clear, but I wouldn't say she's top of the line, but she's okay. She's okay. Shrine Maiden Tsukiko was an amazing unit when she came out. Multiple Imperil fields, a lot of support for a lot of elements, fills a lot of morale gauge, used to hit really hard. You still see her every now and then. Like, she's not dead or anything. She's still very useful, still very strong. The main issue with her is her damage has fallen really far behind at this point. But her support kit is still really good. And you still see her in Clash of Worlds every now and then. Because, like I said, 3 Imperil fields. She's really good at filling. She's probably the 3rd best morale fill after Melissa Kresnik. It's probably Tsukiko's the 3rd best morale battery. I could be wrong here, but regardless, she's really good at filling the morale gauge. She can cure Imperils on demand. Like I said, she can imbue and support and imperil 3 different elements: Rod Imperil, Esperfill, Perfect Dispel. A lot of stuff going on with Tsukiko. The only problem with her these days is her damage. Her damage has fallen very far behind. Ronso Warrior Kamari is basically an STMR for your mid. That's it. Like, when you pull Kamari, you STMR Moogle him, you take his necklace, and you put it on mid. And then Kamari goes to the vault. And that's about where it stops with him. Yeah, he's a Water Dragoon that does trash tier damage and has bad amplifies. And that's it. He's bad. Besaid Mage Lulu is one of those breakers. She's a water breaker. SLB, again, the issue for one thing, water is no good. Second thing, basically, Crowned Laguna does her job better than she does. That's all there is to it. Yeah. Crowned Laguna is just everything Lulu does, but better. Pretty much. Yeah. Same in Peril. Better breaks. Laguna has Mirage for the party. Laguna's got Weapon Imperils. Laguna's got... well, that's kind of it. But yeah, Lulu is just bad breaks, big Imperil, and no damage, and no support. So, sad face. Beach Blaster Olive is a 90% Spirit Breaker. Damage, pretty far behind these days. Used to be amazing. I mean, she's still okay. Her damage can still, probably carry a trial. I haven't even tried her on some of the recent trials. Olive used to be the go-to unit for trials. Like, all during the 12 type trials, pretty much every one of them was like take Olive, take a friend Olive. Easy win. That being said, she didn't scale super well into the leader skill era because her base stats aren't super great. She doesn't have a lot of flat magic. It's just, her damage is just not that good these days. But it is still an it is still a 90% break, which is high, really high. I think her best defense break is 85, so that's really bad. And that's the reason you don't see her as much these days. Youth from Rabanastra Vaughn is an 89 defense breaker, I think 88 spirit, so we're back to the Gilgamesh level. 160 fire in Peril, can do things like Mirage, has human killer. That's kind of it. Yeah, so Mirage, 160 fire, 89 defense, 88 spirit, and human killer. And that's it. Damage, non-existent. So yeah. There you go. Dionist Cyan Ash is a magical tank. Now, truth be told, she is, comparatively to other magical tanks, kind of squishy. Like, she gears really poorly. Her stats aren't super good. Her mitigations are not great. Her only 75 mitigation for the party is on a 90 cost limit burst, which is very, very high. So just honestly speaking, she's not a great magic tank. That said, she's usually good enough. You don't need Abigail levels of tanking for every fight, or even most fights. You don't need that. So even though I'm saying Ash is a relatively bad tank, it's still good enough for 9 out of 10 encounters. Now, the reason you would take Ash to encounters is she has a lot of nice stuff in her kit. She has 250% killers for 3 different races. It's Machine, Fairy, and Spirit, maybe? No, Spirit and Fairy are the same thing. Okay, we're going to look. I forget. Or Stone, maybe it's Stone. Oh my god, come on. Stone Killer it must be. So Machine, yeah, we knew that. Machine, oh my god. Machine, Stone. Machine, Fairy, and Stone, 250 killer. That's pretty good. Also, another really nice thing about Ash is her normal attack is a perfect dispel, meaning you can give her a counterattack and she will keep the boss always perfect dispelled for free, which is very convenient, and you saw me take advantage of that. Well, you might have seen me take advantage of that on JP on the Evil Princess trial. I took her over Cecil just because she counters perfect dispel, and that is a tremendously powerful tool on some fights. Fleet-footed Sky Pirate Balthier, once upon a time, was a really good damage dealer. The issue is, he didn't scale at all into the leader skill era. His stats these days are very, very low. His modifiers are no longer that special. That being said, he does get crowns in the future based on JP. They do make him better. I would say his crowns don't bring him back to the top of the meta, but they make him better than he was, so that's something, I guess. I don't know. Nelica, again, right now Nelica is pretty dead. She was useful for one very specific fight in Dark Visions in the far past. You never saw her since. She does get crowns during the Garuda Tower, if Global brings that over, and they actually do make her pretty strong. They give her True Dual Wield, and I think by memory she has the True Dual Wield cap, and I think I calculated her as actually being pretty good after her crowns. I don't recall specifically, but we'll have to see. Global may or may not bring those, may or may not change them. But as of right now on Global, Nelica is useless, totally useless. So she really needs those crowns to be relevant again. Roos, big sad face for him. I think he gets an upgrade as well. Maybe not. I don't know. But even if he did, he's not good. He never was good. Really sad about that. But yeah, his unit, it's the cursed element. Water element is one of the really bad elements. And Roos is a water unit, and being a water unit is not a compliment. That's basically an insult. And not only that, his stats are bad, his damage is low, and that's all he does is damage. So yeah. Samurai Chizuru is a really, really good unit, and frequently when we talk about, you know, the good old days of unit design, we'll either bring up Roberta or Chizuru as the shining example of a global unit done right. So she is amazing. She has multiple killers, a lot of support stuff in her kit, imbues, mirages, 400% stat buffs, imperil removal, resistance buffs, a little bit of healing, re-raise, like all kind of stuff. And then in her shift form, she's a tag chainer. She's got, well, she had really good damage. It's not quite as good anymore. It's still decent. It's still okay, but it's fallen really far behind compared to what it was once upon a time. But still, her support kit is continuing to keep her alive. So even though units, you know, damage may not be good anymore, if, like, for example, legendary hero Sephiroth, you know, once his damage stopped being relevant, you never saw him again. Chizuru, like, those support kits can keep a unit alive way past their expiration date. And Chizuru, you still see her very often in lots of high-end teams just because of her support kit. And then her little bit of damage. But yeah. So, you know, I was optimistic and wanting to go through the entire list. I'm looking at my timer. We're almost at an hour long. And based on the scroll bar, we're at like 25%. So this is definitely going to be a more than one video discussion. We've got a lot of units to go. A whole bunch of units to go. And we're already at an hour. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this video. I don't want to upload a 3-hour discussion video. Hour is already pushing it pretty far. And then later on, when my throat recovers, it's already drying up from all this talking, I will talk more brief discussion about units as we go. Although, that being said, you know, we are getting to the point where a discussion about a unit will be something like, you know, let's get to a really good example. Like a Coralie. Like, the discussion about Coralie is he trolls your polls, move along. Yeah. But there's still a bunch of units worth discussing in here, and we're going to talk about them. Also, I'll go to the premium page and talk about the premiums. Anyway, that's it for now. See you in, I guess, part 2 in the future. Later.